The Arizona sun beat down like a hammer, turning the main street into a river of shimmering heat. Dust rose with every wagon wheel, every hoof, every boot. The town was small and tired, its wooden buildings leaning together like they were too weary to stand on their own. At the center of it all sat the Broken Wheel Saloon, the only place where laughter tried to drown out despair. Caleb rode into town on a horse as worn and scarred as he was. He was a big man, tall and broad-shouldered, with years of dust and sorrow carved into his skin. His gray eyes looked older than his 37 years, shadows tucked deep inside them. He had fought in the war, survived battles that took better men, and lived through a fever that stole his wife and daughter. Since then, he had been drifting, drinking, and never staying in one place long enough to care. He tied his horse at the saloon and stepped inside. The air smelled of smoke, whiskey, and sweat. Sawdust crunched beneath his boots. He asked for a whiskey, his voice rough from the trail, and the bartender poured it without a word. That's when the trouble started. Across the room, a heavy man in a fine vest slammed his glass down and grabbed the wrist of a young woman in a faded blue dress. "You bring me another watered-down drink, girl, and I'll give you a lesson you won't forget," he barked. She tried to pull away. Her copper-colored hair fell loose from its pins, and her brown eyes flashed with anger, even as fear tightened her jaw. "Mr. Hannigan, the whiskey is the same as always. Maybe you've had enough." The crack of his hand across her face silenced the saloon. Have you ever watched injustice happen right in front of you and had to choose whether to look away or step forward? Have you ever met someone in the worst possible moment and known your life would never be the same? She stumbled, caught herself on a table, and when she rose again, a red mark burned on her cheek. Caleb's gut tightened. She looked like the desert itself. Stark, unbroken, fierce, even when hurt. "Now that ain't no way to treat a lady," Caleb said, his voice low but steady. Every head turned. Hannigan released the woman and glared at the stranger. "This is none of your business, Drifter." "Funny thing about business," Caleb replied, setting his glass down slow and careful. "I make it mine when a man lays hands on a woman." The tension thickened. Hannigan's hand drifted toward his gun. Caleb didn't draw, didn't even blink, just stepped forward and caught Hannigan's wrist in an iron grip. With his other hand, he shoved the man toward the swinging doors. Hannigan stumbled out into the street, cursing and red-faced. "You'll regret this," he shouted. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life." Caleb turned back. The room was silent, every eye on him. The young woman stared too, her cheek still burning, but her chin lifted in defiance. "You all right, miss?" Caleb asked. "I had it handled," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. "But thank you." Her father appeared from behind the bar, gray hair, broad shoulders, and a jaw set like stone. "Clara," he said sharply, "what's going on here?" "Nothing, Pa," she answered quickly. "Just Hannigan being himself." The older man turned his gaze on Caleb. "And who might you be?" "Caleb McGrath," he answered. "Just passing through." "Well, Mr. McGrath, you've just made an enemy of one of the most powerful men in this valley. Hannigan owns half the cattle around here. He doesn't forgive, and he doesn't forget." "Neither do I," Caleb said. Clara's eyes lingered on him, unreadable, but not cold. Something passed between them. A spark, a recognition. Caleb wasn't sure what it was, but it stirred something he thought long dead. He should have finished his whiskey and ridden out by morning. That was the safe thing to do. But instead he rented a room at the hotel. He told himself it was because the stage line was hiring guards and the pay was good. Deep down, he knew it was because of her. In the days that followed, Caleb began to notice things. The way Clara moved through the saloon with a grace that masked weariness. The way she smiled at customers, but never too warmly. The way her shoulders tensed when Lucas Graves, the richest rancher in the territory, entered the room. Graves carried himself like a man who owned not only cattle but people, and his pale eyes lingered on Clara in a way that made Caleb's fists itch. One evening, Graves caught her wrist as she passed with a tray. "Miss Dawson," he said smoothly, "you and I need to discuss our future." Clara's eyes darted to Caleb's corner table. She gave the faintest shake of her head. Then she pulled free, her voice even. "I'm working, Mr. Graves. Another time. Your father's debts won't pay themselves forever. Graves murmured before finally letting her go. Later that night, Caleb found Clara wiping down tables after the crowd had left. He walked closer, his voice quiet. "Is he giving you trouble?" She gave a humorless laugh. "Lucas Graves doesn't give trouble. He is trouble. But that's none of your concern, Mr. McGrath." "Caleb," he corrected softly. Her eyes flicked to his, a spark of surprise breaking through the tiredness. "You see more than most men," she said. "Most only see a saloon girl. You see past that." Their gazes locked. For the first time in years, Caleb felt something like hope stir in his chest. And that's when everything began to change. The days passed, each one weaving Caleb deeper into Dust Creek's troubles and deeper into Clara Dawson's orbit. He had signed on as a stage guard, riding shotgun on gold runs through dangerous country. The pay was steady, the danger real, and it gave him a reason to stay. But no amount of work on the trail could stop his mind from circling back to Clara. He thought of her when the desert sun scorched his skin, when the nights grew cold under a blanket of stars, and most of all when he walked back into the broken wheel and saw her moving through the smoky saloon like a flame refusing to die out. But he wasn't the only one watching her. Lucas Graves loomed like a shadow. His money owned half the valley, and his influence reached into every corner of Dust Creek. The sheriff was in his pocket, the courts bent to his will, and the townspeople avoided crossing him. Graves had his eye on Clara, and unlike other men, he wasn't content to simply watch. The news broke one morning with the force of a hammer blow. Lucas Graves had called in Tom Dawson's debts. Every dollar owed on the saloon had suddenly come due. No payment meant ruin, and Graves offered only one way out: Clara's hand in marriage. Caleb heard the whispers before he saw her. When he finally found Clara behind the saloon, she sat on an overturned barrel, her hands buried in her face. She looked up at his approach, her eyes rimmed red. "Congratulations," Caleb said bitterly. "Word is you're engaged." She laughed, but it was sharp and broken. "Engaged? Is that what they call it when a woman is sold like cattle? My father owes Graves more money than he'll see in 10 lifetimes. Lucas made his terms clear. He gets me, or we lose everything. You don't have to go through with it," Caleb said. Her voice cracked. "Don't I? What choice do I have? Where would I go? What would I do? I'm a saloon keeper's daughter with no money and no future." "There are always choices," he said firmly. "Easy for you to say," she whispered. "You're a man. You can ride away anytime you please. I can't." "Yes, you can," Caleb said, his voice steady. "With me." She froze, staring at him like she hadn't heard right. "With you? I'm offering you a way out," he said. "Not a cage, not chains. Just freedom. You don't deserve to be owned by any man." Her eyes filled with tears. She stepped closer, searching his face. "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" He wanted to tell her everything. That she reminded him of his wife's kindness, of his daughter's laughter, that she stirred something in him he thought long buried, that she made him believe in life again. Instead, he said, "Because I'm tired of watching good people be crushed by men like Graves." She swallowed hard, then whispered, "That's not all, is it?" "No," Caleb admitted. "It's not all." They stood in silence, the air between them heavy with unspoken truths. Then she stepped back, trembling. "I should go. Pa will be looking for me." "Clara, don't," she said quickly. "Don't say what I think you're about to say. I can't. Not yet." And then she was gone, leaving him alone with the echo of his own heart. That night, Clara didn't appear in the saloon. Instead, Caleb found her the next morning, hidden away in her room. Graves had confronted her when she tried to refuse him. Her cheek was swollen, her lips split. Caleb's rage burned hotter than the desert sun. But when he swore to confront Graves, Clara stopped him with shaking hands. "No," she said fiercely. "If you kill him, you'll hang, and I won't survive knowing you died because of me." So Caleb did the only thing he could. He stayed by her side, pressing a cool cloth to her bruises, his touch gentle as if she were made of glass. She leaned into him, whispering, "The offer you made, to leave with you, was it real?" "It was," he said. "It still is." She searched his face, then gave the smallest nod. 3 days after your next stage run, I'll meet you at midnight by the boulders. We'll leave together." Caleb had faced battles, ambushes, and death, But nothing had ever set his heart pounding like those words. And yet, in Dust Creek, hope was always a dangerous thing. 2 nights before their planned escape, the desert sky split open with rain, the first in 2 years. Clara couldn't sleep. She left her father's saloon and, drawn by something she couldn't explain, went to Caleb's small boarding room on the edge of town. When he opened the door, shirt loose, hair damp from sleep, she stepped inside, soaked from the storm. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "You're always welcome here," he said simply. She looked at him, trembling, her voice raw. "I'm scared. Of leaving, of staying, of feeling what I'm feeling." "What are you feeling?" Caleb asked. Clara didn't answer with words. She reached for him, and he pulled her close. The storm outside raged, but inside their world transformed. His arms were strong but gentle, reverent as he held her. She whispered against his shoulder, her voice catching. In that moment, surrounded by his warmth and protection, she felt something she'd never known before. Safety, choice, freedom. That night, Clara Dawson gave her heart not out of duty or fear, but because she wanted to. For the first time, she understood what it meant to be truly free. But freedom in Dust Creek never came without a price. The final morning of their plan came with a silence Clara could not trust. The saloon was too still, her father's face too guarded as he polished the same glass over and over. When he finally spoke, her heart froze. "Lucas Graves is waiting in the back room," Tom Dawson said, still not meeting her eyes. Clara walked in and found Graves sitting at the table with papers spread before him. Mortgage slips, debts, ledgers twisted to his advantage. His smile was cold. "Your father's debts are due. All of them. Today," he said smoothly. "The only payment I'll accept is you. Tonight you'll wear your mother's dress, and we'll marry at sunset." Her blood ran cold. "You can't." "Oh, I can," Graves cut her off. "And if you refuse, the sheriff will find stolen gold in Caleb McGrath's saddlebags. He'll hang before dawn. Your father will rot in prison. And you," he leaned closer, his pale eyes gleaming, "you'll end up in a Tucson brothel. So what will it be, Clara? Your body or their lives?" Trapped. Every move she could make had already been planned for. Clara bit her lip until she tasted blood. Then she whispered, "Fine. I'll do it." That night, with the sheriff and a preacher watching, Clara Dawson became Clara Graves. Her father stood silent, shame in his eyes. Lucas sealed the marriage with a kiss that felt like chains closing around her, and her soul screamed inside her chest. But Clara was not broken. In the weeks that followed, she played the perfect wife. She smiled in public, obeyed when watched, and waited. She skimmed coins from Lucas's accounts, hiding them in secret places. She gathered information, built quiet allies, and held Caleb's promise in her heart. Because Caleb had left, she had forced him to. She had pressed a note into his hands at the boulders, warning him it was a trap. "Go," she'd begged. "Live. I'll find you in Tucson next spring." He had looked at her like his world was ending, kissed her with desperate tenderness, then ridden into the night, his heart breaking as surely as hers. But Graves' arrogance blinded him. He never suspected the fire he had tried to snuff out was only biding its time. Spring came, and so did Caleb. He returned like a ghost on horseback, scarred but alive. Clara's breath caught when she saw him waiting by the ridge. But Graves' spies were everywhere. That night, as Clara tried to slip away, Lucas caught her. "Going somewhere, wife?" He sneered. He'd seen through her plan. He struck her, shoved her against the wall, and promised Caleb's death before dawn. Gunfire rang out in the distance. Lucas smirked. "Hear that? That's your drifter dying in the street." The front door burst open. Caleb staggered in, blood staining his sleeve, his gun steady in his hand. Behind him, bodies lay in the dirt. "Let her go," Caleb growled. Lucas pulled Clara in front of him, knife pressed to her throat. "Drop your gun, or she dies." For a heartbeat, time froze. Then Clara moved. With all her strength, she drove her elbow into Lucas's ribs, twisting away just as the blade grazed her skin. Caleb's gun roared. The bullet struck true. Lucas Graves collapsed, clutching his chest, his pale eyes wide in disbelief. "You always were stronger than you looked," he rasped before hitting the floor. Clara was in Caleb's arms, shaking but alive. He touched her bleeding neck with infinite gentleness. "You came back," she whispered. "I never really left," he said. "I promised." They gathered what they could: gold, food, weapons, and slipped into the night. Tom Dawson stood in the doorway watching. "Go," he said gruffly. "I'll handle things here. Your mother would be proud." They rode hard into the mountains, chased by winter storms and memories too heavy to name. For days, they battled snow and hunger until miners pulled Caleb half dead from the drifts and nursed them both back to life. Clara tended his wounds with fierce devotion, refusing to let him go. By spring, they reached California. In a town called Haven's Rest, they bought a small ranch under new names: John and Mary Carson. Later, they opened a restaurant called Second Chances. The townsfolk saw only a quiet couple, steady and kind. They didn't know the scars beneath Clara's smile or the ghosts that haunted Caleb's eyes. They didn't need to, because Clara had survived. Caleb had kept his promise, and together, they built a life out of nothing but love and grit. Years later, travelers still whispered about Dust Creek, about a saloon girl forced into marriage, and the drifter who defied a ranch baron. But in Haven's Rest, John and Mary Carson just smiled, poured coffee for weary travelers, and held hands beneath the table. They had found something worth more than gold, worth more than land. They had found each other, and no man, no storm, no desert could take that away. Do you believe that sometimes the people worth saving are the ones brave enough to save themselves? That love isn't about possession, but about giving someone the freedom to choose? This story reminds us that real courage isn't just standing up to evil, it's surviving it and choosing to live again. If this story moved you, subscribe to hear more tales from the Wild West, stories of women who refused to be broken, men who chose honor over safety, and love that conquered even the cruelest of circumstances. Share your thoughts if you believe the strongest love stories are born from the hardest battles.